else will be coming and joining us? Ignacio's coming later.
No, I don't know, I'm not sure about...
Well, you know, Ignacio did a study on contamination in Mexico of the corn. And I'm a scientist, so I know, you know, when you submit a paper, there's an entire peer review system that goes through. People study that paper and say, yes, we approve this for publication. And if it gets published in Nature or Science, it's gone through that process. Went through that process. And then Monsanto organized an attack on the journal for the publication of that paper. Later, a journalist in the UK did research. He said, well, you know, where were all these scientists who were saying this was a bad paper? There were no scientists. They called it viral marketing. These are public relations firms with computers. You just cook up a name and bombard a politician or an editorial or whoever with messages. And as you know, on a computer, what's the limit? You know, putting out 10,000, putting out 20,000 is no problem at all. The editors in science, you don't have that kind of thing, so they panicked and withdrew the paper. Never in the history of nature had this happened. Recently, about 2 months ago, one of the most eminent French scientists published a study in the toxicology journal, Seralini. They're trying to do the same, getting at the editors to say, get rid of this paper. First, they said he used the wrong species of mice. And he said, but you use the same species. And they get on and on and on, they don't let go. I'm giving this detail to first let you know that there is evidence, when it's looked for, that there are risks. In the case of the work that Seralini has done now, very high levels of threefold mortality and very high level of mammalian cancers in the rats. There's a Russian scientist, Russian Academy of Science, similar stuff, you can just go on and on and on. But the vote of Proposition 37 is first and foremost about the song. Simply, you just have a right to know what you're eating because, you know, the food is not a little art form in a park, which you might like or not like. It's what you are. That food is going to become your cells and your blood and your bones, or your cancers, or your allergies. And you have a right to know, just a right to know. In any case, labeling has become a standard measure. I mean, if you are told how much salt there is in your food, shouldn't you know if there are GMOs in your food? If you are told that this much calcium in your food, shouldn't you know that there are GMOs in your food? And the label is not saying it's dangerous. Eventually we've got to get there. In fact, what I want to get to is not just have a label that says it's dangerous, but have a ban everywhere. None of this is simple. I've been at it for 25 years.
Thank you.
And more often than not, if we combine creative activism, good science, sharp strategizing, we by and large force them to roll back. We've just had them roll back from taking over the entire research and genetic resources of the province of India, Rajasthan. They had an MOU, we have that cancelled, we move that. They got into, you know, the entire US aid works for Monsanto. They say, we won't give you aid unless you take our GMOs. The farmers of Haiti, after the earthquake, when they brought them GMOs, they said, we don't want your stuff. We'd rather have no seed and no food. We don't want this. You've got to make out until you've got to have GMOs. Fortunately, I had an assistant who was from Nepal, and she worked with me for a while, and she wanted to go back, and she said, what can I do? I said, just monitor what's happening to seed. She writes to me, oh my gosh, I just found out there's an MOU with Monsanto. What do I do next? I said, go mobilize. She found theatre groups, farmers groups, political groups, and organize. And they had, at least for that time being, they had that MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, cancelled. Monsanto came into India in 97, 98 with these GM seeds. And they're a bit stupid because they put ads, full paid ads of how the Indian farmers would be having the seed next year. This is the BT seed, or the trade name is Bulgar. So I rang up the Environment Ministry. I said, did they get approval from you? And they said, no, we have no idea what this is. And no one contacted. I rang up Agriculture Ministry. No. I filed a case. Filed a case against Monsanto for illegal entry, and I filed a case against our government for neglect. And we stopped the GM entry. We stopped the GMO entry by about 5 years. On the hybrid seeds, we could not. Anyway, all of this has meant that Monsanto today controls 95% of the cotton seed market. 60 Indian companies can only sell their seed, nothing else. Nothing else. These are companies that have done seed breeding for centuries. The public breeding system has gone to sleep, and it's very mysterious how the public system just collapses at the moment Monsanto enters. But the real story of Monsanto and GMOs in India is this. As I mentioned, the only reason they introduced GMOs is to collect royalties. Royalty collection increased the price of seed 8,000%. Meantime, the technology doesn't work, so you get more pests, 13-fold increase I mentioned. The combination of this is unpayable debt. And it's private debt to the sellers of the seed and chemicals, which are the agents of Monsanto. And then these agents say, well, you borrowed against your land, now your land is mine, and that's the day the farmer goes into the field, drinks pesticide, ends his life. 270,000 farm suicides since Monsanto started the seed takeover of the cotton. Well, they tried to do this with eggplant, and India is the center of diversity for eggplant. We have 4,500 varieties. We mobilized our little kids. We gave them, we'd hold classes with them, and then we'd give them these little postcards they sent to the Prime Minister and the Health Minister. Say, I don't want to eat this stuff. We'd already had experience with the farm suicides and the debt, which meant large sections of society started to question. And in January 2010, we got a moratorium. So there's no GM food in India. Just like Monsanto and their friends, and it's interesting, Coca-Cola is their very big friend in all of this, because Coca-Cola would not make the kind of profits it does if it wasn't putting high fructose corn syrup from GM corn into its soft drinks. That's why they are worried. And if people start to realize, my God, this is high fructose corn syrup, people won't buy this stuff. Not because it's GMO, but because it's poison. This is a fake molecule our body doesn't recognize. It's absolute warfare against the body. Our parliament has recently said there's no room for GMOs. Our Supreme Court's expert group has said there's no GMOs. And like you have a Mr. Miller, a Dr. Miller.